Something happened at Brown's practice today that I genuinely can't stop thinking about. And I don't mean that in the vague clickbait way where I'm building suspense around nothing. I mean, I've been sitting with this for hours, replaying the details, cross-referencing everything I've been tracking about this quarterback situation in Cleveland. And the more I sit with it, the bigger it feels. A rookie drops back, goes deep, throws it with the kind of conviction you usually don't see from a first-year player until October, maybe November, when the game has finally beaten the college out of them. And the people standing on that field, professionals, veterans, coaches, who have watched thousands of practice reps and stopped being impressed by anything years ago, they went quiet. That's where I need to start. Not because I'm building toward it, because that's honestly the only place this story makes sense to begin. I want to be upfront about how locked in I've been on this Cleveland quarterback situation. This isn't something I've been following from a distance. I've been deep in the practice reports, the coordinator quotes, the tiny signals that organizational decisions send before anyone comes out and says anything official. I went into today already expecting Shedeur Sanders to perform well. That wasn't optimism. That was the product of actually doing the work of watching and analyzing and connecting dots over time. But there's a difference between expecting something and watching it become real in front of you. That gap between anticipation and confirmation, that's what today closed for me. And once that gap closes, everything shifts. Before I get into the specifics of what went down at Berea today, I need to make sure we're on the same page about what mandatory minicamp actually is, because I think the phrase gets absorbed casually without people really registering what it means inside the architecture of an NFL evaluation. This is not OTAs. Voluntary organized team activities are low pressure by design. Veterans managing their bodies, young players finding their footing in slow motion, everyone operating with the unspoken understanding that the real stuff hasn't started yet. Mandatory minicamp is a different animal entirely. Contractually, every player on that roster has to be there. Every coach is running at full attention. Every single rep gets stored somewhere in the organizational memory of that franchise, whether it's formally logged or just silently absorbed. You lose the comfort of telling yourself it doesn't count yet. The psychological weight of a full evaluation cycle gets established in these early days before anyone has made a conscious decision to start scoring. That context is not a footnote to what happened today. It's the entire frame. So here's what the frame looked like. The Browns split their team drills across two separate practice fields. The coaching staff can frame that as a logistical necessity, and maybe there's some truth to that. But in an NFL competition, the geography of a practice field communicates something regardless of intent. There is a Field 1 and a Field 2. There is a group that opens the first day of mandatory minicamp running with the first team offense, and there is a group that doesn't. On day 1, with every impression already compounding in real time, Shedeur Sanders was on Field 1, working with the ones. Mary Kay Cabot put it out there, and the significance of it didn't require any spin. Deshaun Watson was on the second field with the backup unit. Now I already know exactly what the counter-arguments are. It's one rotation. Watson gets the first unit reps tomorrow, and the whole narrative pendulum swings the other direction. A legitimate quarterback competition gets managed with legitimate opportunities distributed on both sides. And I'm not claiming Shedeur locked down every first-team snap for the rest of his career on a Tuesday morning in June. But here's the thing that keeps pulling at me. Tomorrow doesn't undo today. It builds on it, or it doesn't, but the foundation that was laid on this specific day is already permanent. Day 1 of mandatory minicamp, in front of every coach and every teammate with every rep carrying compound weight, Shedeur was on the first field. That's already in the record. Nothing retroactively changes that. And then came the throw. I need you to actually slow down here and let me walk you through this properly, because if you process this as a quick bullet point in a practice recap, you miss everything that made it matter. Shedeur drops back, and the first thing I always look for when I watch him is the mechanics, and his mechanics are genuinely extraordinary in a technical sense. Not the compliment version of that word, the precise version. No panic in the footwork. No wasted motion through the upper body. No compensatory tells that something is being manufactured in real time. The way he moves, the way he sets and surveys and processes. It reads like someone whose mechanics have graduated past the stage of being something you consciously manage and become simply how your body operates. He sees the field, he makes the decision, and then he puts the ball in the air to Denzel Boston on a go route. Deep ball, no safety valve warming up in his peripheral vision. No check down he's keeping available as insurance. Just a decision, made completely, with zero hedging in the execution. A go route is one of the most brutally honest throws in the entire playbook. There's no deception architecture underneath it, no route combination, giving you a comfortable alternative if the coverage tightens. You're committing everything to open sky and betting the entire rep on your own certainty. The gap between a confident quarterback and a genuinely convicted one reveals itself completely on throws like this. Either the ball comes out with authority and trajectory that says I knew this was going to work, or there's something slightly off in the release that tells everyone watching that some part of the decision was never fully made. Shedeur's release said nothing was undecided. The ball came out with authority. Boston went up and pulled it in like the outcome had never really been in question. And people stopped. That detail is the one I keep returning to because I think it's the single most revealing thing about what actually occurred. This is a practice field full of professionals executing their own assignments, managing their own preparation, doing the specific work that their position demands. These are not people who stop easily or get impressed by routine competence. When something real happens, something that exceeds the baseline of what a professional practice field produces, the field registers it almost involuntarily. That silence either occurs or it doesn't. No one can engineer it. It happens because something genuine just took place, and the humans present respond to genuine things. Today it happened, on Field 1, in the first meaningful reps of mandatory minicamp, with the entire organizational structure of the Cleveland Browns as the audience. I want to spend real time on Denzel Boston here because he keeps getting underserved whenever people analyze this situation, and I'm done letting that slide. The narrative around Shedeur is built on the right things: the arm talent, the processing speed, the composure under pressure, the football intelligence that cannot be taught or artificially installed. All accurate, all deserved, but quarterbacks don't function as isolated units. They operate inside relationships, and one of the most revealing relationships in any offense is between a quarterback and the receiver he trusts when the margin for error disappears. The receiver who gets the ball when the wrong decision means a broken play, an interception, a deflating moment in front of the coaches whose evaluations matter most. What Boston showed on that go route, the release from the line, the body control at the catch point, the willingness to go up in contested territory against elite competition without a single frame of hesitation. That is not something a system produces. That is a player who was built for exactly that kind of moment, and most receivers simply are not. Some have it and most don't, and the separation becomes obvious very quickly to anyone paying close attention. Boston has it, and the fact that Shedeur is already reaching for him, already extending that level of trust after such a limited shared history, already operating with that instinctive connection. That tells me something about both of these players that no depth chart number or off-season grade will ever come close to capturing. And let's be fully precise about who was in coverage. Denzel Ward is not a name you drop carelessly. He is an all-pro cornerback. He is one of the most genuinely elite defensive backs in the entire NFL, not a developmental piece getting spring reps to build some confidence, not a complimentary player being used to give the passing game a comfortable target to work against. He is one of the best in the world at what he does. And here is why that matters beyond the obvious headline value. The version of Shedeur Sanders that takes the field in September under the lights is going to face Denzel Ward-level competition every single week for the rest of his professional life. The distance between a quarterback who looks exciting in spring drills and a quarterback who delivers when October arrives is built precisely in moments like this one. Whether the resistance was real enough to actually test something, or whether it was comfortable enough to allow someone to look good without being genuinely challenged. Today the resistance was real, and today it sharpened Shedeur rather than exposing anything. I keep looking for the fracture points in his game, and I keep coming back with nothing. There was another detail from today that's not getting the analytical attention it deserves: the QB option concepts that were running through Shedeur's reps. On the surface, that sounds like a procedural footnote. I'd push back hard on that reading. I think it reveals something meaningful about the actual offensive philosophy Todd Monken is constructing around this quarterback. Monken's history is not ambiguous. What he built in Baltimore around Lamar Jackson was a demonstration of what happens when you design an offense around the complete and total toolkit of a quarterback. Not the arm in isolation, not the mobility in isolation, but the real-time cognitive infrastructure that allows a player to read defensive structure as a play is still developing and make decisions that leave the defense wrong regardless of which direction they commit. Shedeur is not Lamar. That's not the argument being made, and it shouldn't be. But the option concepts Munkin ran through his reps today demand the same foundational processing architecture. You're scanning the defensive alignment as the play opens around you. You're deciding in fractions of a second, handoff, keep, pivot to the pass, while simultaneously managing your own positioning relative to blockers and contained defenders. And then you're immediately resetting your entire mental framework for the next snap, which might demand a completely different cognitive skill set than the one you just deployed. Quarterbacks who move through those transitions with fluid naturalness, who don't carry the stiffness of someone still translating the conceptual language of an offense. Those quarterbacks possess football intelligence that is genuinely rare. Shedeur moved through those concepts today like someone who already thinks in the language, not like someone executing assignments, like someone who recognizes patterns he already knows. Munkin was watching. I think he saw exactly what he needed to see. Here's the thread that almost never gets discussed honestly, and I want to give it the space it actually deserves. Think about what Shedeur Sanders has been carrying since before he threw a single professional pass. His father is Deion Sanders, one of the most celebrated, scrutinized, and genuinely polarizing figures in the entire history of American sports culture. Shedeur played his college football at Colorado inside what functioned essentially as a weekly national media spectacle, where every throw and every decision and every moment of success or struggle was processed through the public's existing relationship with his last name before it was ever evaluated as football. He went through a pre-draft process that was, and I want to be deliberate with these words, disproportionately intense in ways that didn't always feel purely driven by football evaluation. He arrived in Cleveland, which carries its own dense and specific history at the quarterback position that doesn't need me to describe because you already know exactly what it is. And Deshaun Watson is still in that building, still on one of the most complicated and expensive contracts ever issued by an NFL franchise, returning from injuries that have kept him off the field for most of 2 consecutive seasons. That's the environment. That's the weight that existed before Shedeur ever lined up behind center in an NFL practice. And what I genuinely cannot find anywhere in his game when I watch him operate in that environment is doubt. I want to be careful here because I know composure and poise get used as filler compliments. The kind of generic praise you offer any quarterback you want to say something positive about without actually saying much. That's not what I'm describing. I'm talking about something that has a measurable, observable quality when you watch film with real attention. There is a concrete difference between a quarterback who is working hard to project calm and a quarterback who has reached a place of actual internal certainty. The performed version has tells, a half second of hesitation before the decision finalizes, an over-deliberateness in the mechanics, the body compensating for something the mind hasn't fully resolved, a quality in the release where you can almost feel the quarterback second-guessing himself in the fraction of a second before the ball leaves his hand. None of that is present when I watch Shedeur Sanders. The certainty reads as real. The composure reads like something that was earned across years of operating under exactly the kind of pressure most quarterbacks never experience at his age. And the throw he made today, the go route, full conviction, no escape valve, in front of the entire organizational structure of the Cleveland Browns, was as pure an expression of that internal certainty as I can recall seeing from a rookie quarterback this early in any evaluation process. There's a smaller detail from today I want to mention before I close because I think it gets swallowed by the larger storyline, but it carries something human in it. Dillon Gabriel came into minicamp wearing number 8. Jared Verse, the edge rusher, had a real claim on that number. Gabriel moved to 6. I know how that sounds against everything else we've walked through, but for a young quarterback trying to establish his identity in a new professional environment, fighting for position and standing, learning the subtle cultural vocabulary of an NFL locker room, jersey numbers communicate something. A single digit versus something in the 20s is not a trivial distinction to the people wearing them. These details don't appear in any official evaluation document. They live inside the humans involved. Jared Verse himself was running with the first-team defense today, which should recalibrate anyone's sense of how comfortable life is going to be for either quarterback in this competition as the summer builds toward camp. This isn't a passive defense being used to create confidence in the passing game. This is a defensive unit being constructed with the explicit intention of generating genuine, sustained daily pressure, and that daily confrontation with real resistance is ultimately the only mechanism that produces genuine clarity, the kind that separates actual readiness from its convincing imitation. But I keep coming back to that one moment. Boston going up and pulling the ball out of the air, the field going quiet around them, Shedeur already resetting his feet for the next rep, already moving on, like what he had just executed was simply the next entry in a sequence he has been preparing his entire life to step into. That image is what I'm carrying out of today, not because one throw in June writes the complete arc of anyone's career. I'd push back hard on that argument if someone made it. I'm carrying it because of what it communicates at the level of psychology and preparation and pure willingness to commit it fully, in a moment that carries real weight. On the first day of mandatory minicamp, with every impression compounding and every coach's attention fully engaged and every first-look evaluation carrying interest that accumulates over time, Shedeur Sanders looked at what was in front of him, selected the hardest throw available, and trusted himself without visible hesitation. No retreat toward the comfortable option, no hedging in the delivery, a decision made with complete clarity, executed with authority, and rewarded visibly in front of the people who will ultimately determine what his future looks like. Tomorrow, Watson runs the first unit, the coverage adjusts, the narrative machinery recalibrates, and that's exactly how a legitimate competition should function. Thursday closes out minicamp, then the real test arrives. Training camp, pads on, live contact, the environment where every remaining hiding place evaporates and genuine clarity surfaces because the game stops allowing you to simulate it. That's when the fuller picture comes into focus. That's when this competition sharpens into something definitive. But today already happened. Today is permanent. And for Shedeur Sanders, Day 1 of mandatory minicamp didn't require a qualifier or a footnote or a follow-up clarification. It stood completely on its own terms. The story is still being written, but that opening line landed exactly the way it needed to.